I got deported after working as a medical assistant for ICE. I'm about to get very detailed as far as to why I got deported, how I was pulled over by Border Patrol, how I got caught doing exactly what I was doing, and it might be a long ass video. So really it all started when I was about 8 years old and I was still over here in El Salvador. All of a sudden, one of my uncles was unalived by the gang members over here in El Salvador. And the reason why that happened is because he was dating a female and he found out that this female had a lot to do with the gangs over here in El Salvador. He decided to cut things off with her and she was so mad because of it, she sent the gangs to unalive him. And because of that, my mom decided that it was not safe for me to be in El Salvador no more. So she decided to take me over to the United States. I still remember the day that they told me that I was leaving. I was still at my uncle's funeral. Somebody just came and picked me up from the funeral and was like, yo, get ready, we gotta go. And I was like, what do you mean, go where? Your mom is taking you to the United States. Fast forward a couple of years later, I was chilling with one of my cousins over there in the States and he was like, yo, you know who you look like? And I was like, who? You look like Pollito. I was like, what do you mean? Who's that? Pollito is your uncle that was unalived by the gangs over there in El Salvador. And I was like, what, for real? So my dad, my mom, everybody was in there when my cousin told me that. And my dad was like, damn. So ever since I was 14 years old, my nickname officially became by friends, family, everybody in the States as Pollito. Ironically, as I've told it in a video before, this nickname basically sealed my destiny. And it sounds stupid, but you're gonna know why. I'm currently at work. Fast forward a couple of years later, I was 18 years old in the 9th grade. Everybody else that I was in school with, they were 14, 15-year-old, and I was the only old motherfucker. And I was just so embarrassed that I flunked 9th grade 3 times to the point where I was like, no, I don't want to do this no more. So I dropped out of school. And then I started working at Forever 21, McDonald's, then Walmart. My last straw was basically working at Walmart. And my dad at that time, he was always like, yo, sos el fracaso de la familia. And then he would constantly tell me, yo, look, your cousin is a medical assistant. She's over there paying for her dad's rent, buying her dad a new iPhone, paying for her dad's bills. And it got to the point where he was repeating that so much to me that I was like, yo, I'm gonna go check this medical assistant shit out. So I decided to go back to school and get a GED. I was about 19 years old when I decided to go back to school. Fast forward a couple of months later. Hi, this is Joshua on a recorded line. A fucking call. I was 20 years old when I started going to school to be a medical assistant. It was a school over there in Houston called CHCP. I looked so fucking dumb wearing a scrub. Like, nah, bro, this shit is not for me. What am I doing? What is me? Bro, what the fuck am I doing, man? 15 other females and only 3 men in the whole class. I decided to keep going because I was like, bro, I don't want to be working at Walmart no more. Then 6 months later, I felt like it just was not for me. I did not like what I was learning. I did not like what I was wearing. I did not like nothing. The school is not for me, so I wanted to drop out again. So I went to my director and I told her, I was like, yo, man, look, this is not for me. I want to drop out. Why do you want to drop out? And I told her my reasons and she was like, how old are you? So I told her, I was like, I'm 20 years old. And she said, up until what age do you believe a human lives? And I was like, about 80 years old. She literally grabbed a board. She was like, okay, this is you right now at 20 years old. And she drew a line. At the end of the line, she was like 80 years old. This is you right now. And this is you at 80 years old. If you quit right now, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna go back to working at Walmart. She was like, are you happy with that? I was like, no. If you just take 1 year of your life, you're gonna be able to change your whole life up until you're 80 years old. But you only have a couple more months left. So why not just do that effort to change your life? And I was like, you know what? She's right. So eventually I ended up finishing school for medical assistant. I ain't gonna lie. I passed just because of my teacher. Not because I passed the test, because I know I flunked that shit. So the thing about this school, they actually try to look for a job for you once you graduate from medical assistant. Now, mind you, I was getting paid $10.50 an hour over there at Walmart. Once I started working as a medical assistant, they told me that I was only gonna make $11 an hour. Like, bro, what the fuck? Did I really just go to school for 50 cents? Fuck no, man. What the fuck is my dad talking about? My cousin is over there buying iPhones, paying her dad's bills. Bro, you can't do that with $11 an hour. Who do I have the pleasure of talking to? It ain't my pleasure, bitch. So anyways, during that time, one of my boys found a job with a traveling agency. And he was like, yo, bro, have you applied yet? And I was like, what do you mean applied for what? He was like, yeah, look, I'm gonna send you the email. And in the email, it said that it was a traveling agency. It wasn't specifying exactly for what. It did say $2,500 a week. Like, whoa, wait a minute, what you mean? And I was like, okay, why nobody told me about this shit? Why am I over here working for $11 an hour and shit? So I told my director, and I was like, look, man, I'm about to quit. And she was like, no, don't quit. This is gonna look bad on your resume if you quit. And the only thing I care about is making money, not trying to make my resume look good. And I started applying to it, but they weren't giving you any sort of details, so it felt like I was gonna be kidnapped or something like that. I got on the phone with them and I was like, yo, I'm a medical assistant. I literally just graduated and I'm looking for a job. Okay, are you able to fly tomorrow? Tomorrow? Yeah. So she started asking me for all of my information, my social security, my everything. And I was like, bro, I'm about to be kidnapped. So next day comes, we went to the airport, and bro, I just feel so fucking weird about this. This does not feel like an actual job. We ended up taking the airplane and it landed over there in El Paso, Texas. Like about 3 hours later, we called and we were like, yo, we're over here. Like, can you send somebody for us? And they were like, no, we're not gonna send anybody. You have to find a way to come over here to the hotel. And I kept telling him, I was like, bro, you're sure about this shit? Bro, we're already over here. We might as well just go. We don't have a plane back. We ended up taking an Uber from the El Paso airport to I believe it's called a Motel 6. We got to the Motel 6 and there was already like about 15 other people in there. As soon as I saw people in there and I saw a table where you had to sign in, put your information down, I was like, okay, so this is probably legit. I'm not the only one that's gonna be kidnapped and shit. So we kept asking them more information about the job itself. We can't tell you right now. So he was like, go ahead, go take a shower, relax. Tomorrow morning, be over here in the lobby. I was over there in the fucking lobby like around 7 in the morning. And that's when they start telling us this job is to be working in the medical field for Border Patrol. So you're gonna be inside of an ICE facility. When they told me that, literally my heart sank. I have DACA. I don't have a legal paperwork status to be inside of a fucking Border Patrol facility. And I was so fucking scared. I was scared that I was gonna be deported. So I was like, fuck it, bro. Like, if I tell him no, I'm gonna be deported. If I tell him yes, I'm probably gonna be deported too. Might as well just go through with it. I'm gonna be deported anyways. We started driving like about an hour away. I believe it's to Tornillo, Texas. And sure enough, we got there. Bro, the fucking border was like about a 3-minute walk. Like, I could literally visually see it with my own fucking eyes and shit. Así lo tenía, perro, así. So then they started telling us a little bit more about the job itself. So there's this company in Texas, was literally funded after one immigrant girl was denied access to a school. So they had literally got a contract with Border Patrol. Every unaccompanied minor that Border Patrol caught at the border, they will put them in this facility. And our job as medical assistants, nurses, or doctors was to make sure that the kids were healthy, fed, and weren't bringing any sort of diseases or viruses inside of the United States. Hi, this is Joshua. I don't remember where I was at. And at the end of this program, the kids were actually able to stay inside of the US with some sort of permits to be in the US legally. Some of the kids had gone through hell and back. I cannot imagine a kid going through so much pain. There was this one kid in particular that I'm never gonna forget. And I've talked about it before. He was a kid from Honduras, I believe, 12 to like 15 years old. Once he was inside of this facility, every night, literally every night, he would always wake up crying like at 3, 4 in the morning, like literally crying and screaming. And he didn't want to talk to nobody. He didn't want to talk to no doctors, no nurses, nobody. He did not want to talk to anybody about it. I was trying to get him to open up to me until he finally did. So he was telling me that it was just him and 2 of his other friends, about 15-year-olds, that took the train called La Bestia, which is a train that goes from the border of Mexico and Guatemala all the way up to the border of Mexico and USA. So he ended up taking this train with both of his friends, and it got to the point where they had to go through a tunnel. So he stayed in the stairs in between the carts, and both of his friends ended up going to the roof of the train. So they ended up going through that tunnel, and for like a whole minute, as soon as they came out of it, he started calling out for his friends, but nobody was answering. So he was like, what happened? So he started climbing up the stairs to go to the roof, and he saw both of his friends decapitated. So every time he would try to get some sleep, he would always see them asking him during his sleep for help. And that's just one example. There were a lot of kids that were fleeing the country because they were either getting chased by gang members, the police were extorting them, their parents didn't want them. It was just a lot of reasons, and all these kids had the same thing. They had to leave the country, and it was at that point that I was like, now I know why I'm here. So fast forward a couple of months later, I met this one female in there. I was about 21, 22 years old, and she was about 37, 38 years old when we started dating. And she was actually from El Paso. The only time that we would really see each other, it was during those trips. The only bad thing about the assignments was that they would only last 1 month. It could go up to 6 months, but very rarely did it go over 1 month. So I was making about $10,000 per month. After that month ended, we would basically have to wait until the next assignment. Sometimes it would be up to 1 month, 3 months. Sometimes I would only wait 1 week. Now, while I was talking to this woman, she kept telling me, yo, let's go to Mexico. And in my mind, I was like, bro, if I go to Mexico, I'm not gonna be able to come back. DACA doesn't allow you to re-enter the United States. I kept putting excuse after excuse, and I was like, nah, I don't want to go to Mexico. Mexico's too dangerous. I don't like it. I don't want to die. She was like, why not? It's not dangerous. And it turned into a big deal because she was like, okay, if you're my man, I want you to go with me. Like, why are you doing this? Eventually, I ended up confessing to her that it was because I had DACA. And if I stepped outside of the US, I was not going to be able to come back. So she understood. I was embarrassed of it. I didn't know how to tell you that I just don't have papers like you think I do. By this point, we had already been dating for like about 6 months, and she was like, you should have told me that from the beginning. Out of nowhere, she said, let's get married. Like, what? I want to fix your papers. Let's get married. So because of that, I started looking at this female as this is the one. Like, nobody's just gonna tell you, yo, let me fix your papers and that's it. When I met her, she was really struggling bad because she was going through court with her baby daddy. Her baby daddy was asking her for child support, and he wanted to take her kids away. A 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, I believe. Now, mind you, she had a 21-year-old daughter. I was 22. So she was spending all of her money on court, lawyer fees. She was already in like about $20,000 in debt. It got to the point where she started receiving letters from the dealership talking about, we're gonna go and take your car away, because she was behind about 3 months. So she was really scared of getting repoed. And it got to the point where every time she would see a tow truck, she would literally start shaking because she was like, yo, they're about to come for my car. I felt so bad every time she would literally start shaking because of it. She wants to help me fix my papers, and I saw her struggling with money to be able to pay her car note. So at that point, I was like, I know where to get quick money from.